the 28 defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. Brian H. Waters here live with a Ravens post show brought to you exclusively on Haps News, Haps TV, of course, broadcast to all social media platforms. But I promise you, download the app. It's really cool. A lot of good stuff here. It's a great opportunity to connect with other journalists, to see a lot of things going on live stream, and I'm here to bring you post game coverage. And I have let's see, I'm waiting for my good brother Kyle to come on. Let me send the invite to him again. Oh yes, I already invited. So yeah, waiting for Kyle Andrews to join me. Yeah, so he will be joining on this episode. So Ravens getting it done. They survived. Let me see. Check to see if you have a notification. Yeah, Ravens surviving. A game that looked like they were going to put the Philadelphia Eagles away. That's the one thing you can never be so sure. This is the National Football League, so there's always a nobody's going to give up. And as I look back, I'm going to go ahead and show you this play right here. Earlier, Lamar Jackson hitting Nick Boyle for a touchdown pass. Now this was, earlier in the game. What up, Pablo? Checking in from Los Angeles. Big game for you tonight, Pablo. I know that you'll be looking forward to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Hopefully they will get it done. I'm going to be honest with you before I get more into football talk. I'm excited about the game. I'm excited about the game tonight as we see the Dodgers taking on the Atlanta Braves. So that'll be a big game tonight. I got the Dodgers winning. I think they done turned it around, got the momentum. That's the team I want to see win the World Series, but I'll be honest with you, I want to see whoever comes from the National League win it all. So Lamar playing kind of sus in the passing game, coming from Renegade Falcon 45. Yeah, the passing game, he only had 186 yards. He was 16 for 27. I felt like he was trying to spread the ball. I felt like he was trying to spread the ball, so I kind of understood where they were coming from. But you got to hit your targets and save that for practice, to be honest with you. Bill checking in from San Anselmo. Forgive me, never heard of that area. Go Niners. Appreciate you tuning in. Fingers crossed for Pablo as we discuss the Dodgers. What up, Mark? Mark checking in as well. Mark, oh, you're a Steelers fan, Mark? No. I mean, well, y'all undefeated right now, but I will say, when you look at everything, they play the real competition coming up when they play the Baltimore Ravens. So we shall see how that goes. Hold on, let me see something. All right, it says Justin Jefferson in Minnesota is going to be a star, even with Cousins. Yeah, I got to check that out. Renegade Falco 45. I got to check out. I didn't check out too many other games. I just watched the Ravens game. I saw on Twitter how there were quite a few. I saw some of the other games. I know I almost said the bad word. The Washington football team went for the win and failed. You see the invite. All right, so I'm trying to get Kyle in. He's in the chat. So let me see if I can bring him in. As Renegade says, I'm an R-word fan. Don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, let me see something. Chat live. Yeah, so sorry, y'all. Just trying to bring in Kyle because Kyle and I are going to talk some Ravens football. Let me see if I can reach out to Mark. Mark, if you could help me bring in Kyle. Yeah, 2 weeks, Ravens and Steelers. I'm trying to bring Kyle in. I sent the invite again. All right, maybe I have to do it like that. Maybe I was pressing something. So, but there was a lot of questionable penalties. But I do think when I saw this game, it looked like the Ravens were kind of taking their foot off the gas. And in the NFL, you just absolutely you can't do that. You cannot take your foot off the gas. These players are professionals, so you cannot do that. You gotta keep your foot on the gas, and I think they learned their lesson from this week. On Facebook, Hugh Scott says, "Let's go Braves." They are next. Talking about the baseball game earlier. So let's see here. All right, cool. So yeah, but I look at like I said, 30-28. I know a lot of people upset. People had bigger spreads. I think a lot of people had the Ravens winning, but the Philadelphia Eagles aren't that bad of a football team. You got to look at it. I saw a lot of people getting on Carson Wentz, but what I saw was Wentz just doesn't have his offensive line. I don't care if you're Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if you're Aaron Rodgers. If you don't have your offensive line, you're in trouble. Stunt Dummy says Washington just needs to change their mascot to a red potato and the name will be fine. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see what happens. What will their name be? Washington, that is. So, let's make sure we get this situated. And but I thought Lamar Jackson kind of found some of his rhythm back, especially when it came to his legs. As we did see, he had well over 100 yards. As I put that right there on your screen, it's coming up. 2 touchdowns. He had 108 yards, which obviously the last few, the over 100 came at the end of the game. But he also had over 186 passing yards. So I know a lot of people wasn't too happy with the passing game, but it's going to take time. We saw a heavily stacked offense a year ago. Yeah, a year ago they were a team that when we watched them, they was just all over the place, taking care of business, and they still put up 30 points today. They still put up 30 points. There we go. Looks like Kyle's coming. Yeah, there we go. Kyle, what up, man? How you feeling? I'm good, man. Glad you was able to join. Shout out to Pablo and Mark for this great platform and helping us get situated. Ravens get the win. How you feel about the win today? Mhm.
And the receivers were, kind of out of sync. The running game looked fine,
Mhm.
but the offensive line, I mean, it was more or less to me that, it was more the flags that they had, getting a holding penalty that late and then pushing them back so far. And then you give the Eagles, solid field position as well because of that holding penalty. I just, things like that need to be cleaned up. And I think it just goes to show you that Marshall Yanda meant that much to that offensive line last season.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think when you lose him, and then you have a rookie right guard in with Tyree Phillips who got taken out because of an injury. It causes some issues. So I definitely think that they have a lot of stuff to clean up. I still think they need one more weapon because the receivers weren't getting open today. It just didn't look that great to me.
Yeah. Shout out to Atir says too many penalties. I thought some of those penalties were whack, man. I thought like some of them like, was that really like too much? What was it? illegal man downfield or illegal formation. I'm like, come on now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. And I think, some of those penalties, it's like just know where you're at. Have spatial awareness, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Ravens were lacking spatial awareness today. And and that's the thing. They're doing this and winning. So imagine if they put it all together. If they
Yeah,
put it all together, they could blow teams out by 50. If they're playing this well, even playing poorly by anybody else's standards, this is a great win, right? So
absolutely. And the
you know,
Eagles aren't that bad. I know they're
mhm,
what 1-4-1, I believe. But they aren't that bad of a football team. Their offensive line is hurt. Now, I saw week one when they played the Washington football team and they went up, I think it was 17, only for Washington to come back. And we almost saw it in reverse where they almost came back on the Ravens. But I also think the Ravens let their foot off the gas at the end. You could just see some of the body language. I think Marcus Peters is a much better defender where Wentz just threw the a prayer up, and he just kind of like lackadaisical tried to swat it away. I think if the game was on the line, you would have seen a better coverage right there.
I'm right there with you. I think he would have, jumped up, made a quicker play. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's plays that Marlon Humphrey on the other side made that just stood out to me where he just jumped on like as soon as a running back jumped out to the outside, Marlon Humphrey jumped on him like a cougar. And I
Yeah,
mean, and then to see him that effort from Marlon Humphrey and then to turn around and see the effort by Marcus Peters, you're like, where's the disconnect at? And even Jimmy Smith showed his effort. I mean, Jimmy Smith had a bunch of good plays today. We have to
yeah,
give him some credit. So it's like we look at, I think that they need to kind of put that all together. I think sometimes that it's like that Marcus Peters, he freelances a lot. And I think that he's going to have to play, more conservatively, going later into the season. So, maybe he can change that up a little bit. Just stay home and not try to, make too many, jumpy plays. Like he doesn't have to do that all the time. You don't always have to make the splash play. Just make the right play. And Marlon Humphrey does that every time.
right.
So
What? Yeah, absolutely. Another thing, looking at the comments on Facebook. Shout out to my cousin Josh said keeping the game close. He puts in parentheses Vegas and the dollar signs. I saw shout out to Mark Viviano. I saw him post a video earlier this week and on Twitter where he talked about I don't know how many track. I think it's 12 years ago now when
yep.
John Harbaugh interviewed for the Ravens job. And just remember, a lot of people may not know, I know you do, that when Jason Garrett was kind of like the number one target that everybody in Baltimore wanted, and Jerry Jones, he was at the time the offensive coordinator for the high power offense of the Dallas Cowboys that featured Tony Romo, Jason Witten, Terrell Owens, and
Hmm.
Roy Williams. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, we need him to come in Baltimore. Everybody was, getting over the Billick era. And all of a sudden, there's this unknown guy, special teams coach at that, is John Harbaugh. And not only in his rookie year as a head coach did he lead the Ravens to an AFC championship game, but he would do it.
I think I lost your sound, Brian.
to hear me now. All right, let me know if you can hear me now. Sorry about that. Looks like the sound dropped out. Great. Sound still out. All right, we got Kyle coming back in. Appreciate everybody tuning in. As you know, understand. Sorry about the technical difficulties. All right, so I hear that we do have sound. Sorry about that. Thanks, Josh, for letting me know. And it looks like Kyle was getting set to get back in here. But yeah, I was talking about John Harbaugh, and John Harbaugh was 12 years ago. A lot of Ravens fans wanted Dallas. Instead, we got John Harbaugh. Wanted Jason Garrett from Dallas, and we made the right decision. The Bisciotti family, well, Steve Bisciotti made the right decision, and John Harbaugh made the decision last year to really build the team around Lamar Jackson and build a game around him. And now the Ravens are successful. We just looking at it, putting looking at Calais Campbell. He's just able to. He's a big guy and able to just kind of run through that offensive line today, and just run through offensive lines. But they got to figure out the offense. The Ravens got to figure out their offense, and they can't let the leads like this. I felt bad for Chuck Clark. Today had interception, but it was called back due to a penalty. We saw that happen last week as well. He had an interception, but it was called back due to a penalty. So I'm like, man, they said we all wanted Jason. Everybody was like, and everyone was like, who is John Harbaugh? You're right, Josh. Everybody was like that. But clearly they made the right decision. Just getting somebody who really understands, who work with the players. And one of the things I learned just about watching him, that he had all his content ready and set up, like when his speech is ready. So John Harbaugh could go out there and be a great players coach because he had his speeches ready. He had his what his situations and things he would say. Kyle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just trying to fix my camera.
Okay. Yeah,
There we go.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
but
sound had some issues, but I think we're all good now, right?
yeah, it sounds like it. But yeah, I talked about John Harbaugh and just the Ravens making that good decision. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's funny, back when I was in the eighth grade, that was actually when they made the decision that I was just about to get ready for high school.
Sheesh, I'm that
And
much older than you?
yeah, I was in the eighth grade when when John Harbaugh came in. So it's like, you know, I remember Billick vividly. I
Mm-hmm.
remember all the Billick years vividly. I feel like those were more my formative years, but it was like when Harbaugh came in, it was this no nonsense approach
Mm-hmm.
to the team that I don't feel like they ever had during Billick's years. That's no knock on Brian Billick. I just think that Brian Billick was more of a player's coach,
I think they
whereas,
had it the year they won the Super Bowl, but they also had a lot of veterans who could
hmm
do that. You know what I mean?
yeah, with
Yeah, you went out, bro, and can't hear you. But yeah, still can't hear you. It sound like your audio just went out again. But yeah, that's the one thing we didn't have, was that no nonsense approach.
so.
There we go. I can hear you now.
My bad. So
Yeah,
yeah,
what you were saying?
no, I was just saying that that defense definitely had a lot of veterans. They
Mm-hmm.
had Rob Burnett on at the defensive end position. They had Tony Saragusa. They had, Sam Adams, of course. They had Peter Boulware. They had Ray Lewis. They had so many other guys, Jamie Sharper, Rod Woodson. That team, I mean, even if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Dwayne Starks and Chris McAllister.
Yeah.
So that whole defense, I mean, every single one of those guys was an outstanding player at one point in their career, if not, a majority of their career. Multiple Hall of Famers. Of course, you had, and then Michael McCrary, we can't forget about him. So, all those veterans, it was different than, this younger. I feel like this Ravens defense now is a lot younger than, Ravens defenses of the past. And so sometimes it's a lot more miscommunication going on. I think that it'll get better as time goes on. And I think the past couple of weeks they had been playing really well. I mean, shoot, most of this game they were playing well. I just think it was, a couple boneheaded decisions that the offense made that put more pressure on the defense. I can't necessarily say it was all on the defense, but the offense did also put up, as many points as they did, and that was
Mm-hmm.
due to the defense. So, it goes hand in hand. Like the offense is going to have to be able to sustain drives better so that this defense can sustain drives. But ultimately, like you were saying before, I know I kind of went off into a tangent, but
Oh, you good.
John,
You good in my book.
oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, John Harbaugh, I think when he came in, he was a different coach. He just had I feel like he put all the ducks in a row. And I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
rubbed some people the wrong way initially. I mean, of course, you had some casualties up front with Chris
I was gonna
McAllister.
say, yep, he never suited
Um,
up.
yeah, and I think that a lot of Ravens fans were looking at that back then. They were like, man, why would we get rid of somebody as good as Chris McAllister? He was the best cornerback in Ravens history. And
But you
then
know
you
what
see the
though? That '07 team, McAllister was falling off. He was getting burnt.
Mhm,
And
exactly.
and you remember, if you remember that time, a lot of those guys had like radio shows, and I feel like
Hmm.
Harbaugh came in and cut all that out. Like I think Monday was like the Jonathan Ogden show, Tuesday McGahee, Wednesday. I could obviously have the days mixed up, but see, like everybody had a radio show, and I'm like, y'all got radio shows. I understand the previous season you were 13-3, but you like 5-11.
Hmm.
You know.
Exactly. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. People
Mm-hmm.
weren't having that. And I think, especially with Harbaugh, his camp, I think they just a completely different culture when they came in. They shut all that down. They were like, nope, we're not having it anymore. And when they came in, they changed a lot of stuff around. They I still think the Ravens when Harbaugh came in that those first 10 years with Flacco at quarterback, I think it's funny because I think a lot of people when they came in, they watched the Ravens and they were like, man, this team is boring to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Back even during the first how many years that they played, they had no quarterback play at all. We
Right.
always have to remember the first quarterback that I can remember that the Ravens had that was actually decent, and he was only decent for 1 year, and that was Steve McNair.
I
Before
mean,
that
we
was
had,
Vinny Testaverde too. Let me
yeah,
give Vinny his credit, but other than those two, I mean, let's just name off some of the people that they had. You had after Vinny, I think it was like Stony Case,
Eric Zaire.
Eric Zaire, Jim Harbaugh,
Uh-huh.
not John, but Jim.
And not Colts Jim Harbaugh either.
Yeah, exactly. Then you had Trent Dilfer, Chris Redmond.
Oh, you
I
got to bring
mean,
in Tony Banks, though.
Tony Banks, yep, of course. Elvis Gerback, Jeff Blake,
Yep.
Anthony Wright. I mean, how many more do we have to list off? Kyle Bowler. And that was going
Cordell
a little bit
Stewart.
further. Cordell Stewart, Randall Cunningham. I mean, they
And
had about 20 quarterbacks.
they, you
And
know
but
what, though? They still got in the playoffs consistently. I think that a lot of people will say Ravens fans are spoiled. 2 Super Bowls.
I think Ravens fans are spoiled. I'll say that too.
Multiple championship games. Obviously, I'm a bigger Orioles fan, so I would love for the Orioles to have a taste of the success that the Ravens have. But um, I think the winning culture that they put here, the no nonsense, and the fact that they know fans won't go for that. So when you got a team governor like Steve Bisciotti, that reflects all the way down because he knows that the fans aren't going to spend the money if he's not putting a great product on the field. He's going to have to hear about it. So
Absolutely.
therefore, he makes sure. And then if you don't cut the mustard, then you got to go.
Right. It's definitely true. And I think,
You
Steve
said Wally
Bisciotti,
Richardson.
man.
But what you say about Steve Bisciotti?
Oh yeah, I think Steve Bisciotti, that no nonsense attitude that he came in with. I think him and Harbaugh, like Steve Bisciotti was like when you could tell. I think when he came in, you could just tell that he wasn't putting up with any BS.
Mm-hmm.
When a team transitioned over into his hands fully from Art Modell, because I mean, I don't think enough people understand that Steve Bisciotti always had kind of a hand in the Ravens.
Right.
He has two rings too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when he finally started taking over, you could see him slowly start to create the team in his image.
Yeah.
That team went from being, I think the Ravens were more like a fun-loving, like underdog kind of team that Steve Bisciotti slowly turning the Ravens into the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
But like a more clean, I think a grittier team than the Patriots, of course. But it's like, they have that respectability that the Patriots tend to get from national media.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens they're slowly going into that range of motion. I think Harbaugh is starting to be looked at. Maybe he might not be Bill Belichick, but he's like
Mm-hmm.
the next step down.
Oh, absolutely.
And and
Absolutely.
and it's like Bill Belichick. Like I look at it from this standpoint. To me, like Andy Reid and Bill Belichick, 1A and 1B. And I mean, well, I would say Bill Belichick is 1A, obviously, and and then Andy Reid's like a half a step below. I think Andy Reid, you see what the Eagles gave him when he was there, and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, some of the general manager moves that they made, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, come on now, that didn't make too much sense. But when it came to, the Chiefs, when they gave him everything that he needed. And once got the tools to do it, bam, they go flying off the hook. Now the
Yeah.
Ravens, I think, that the way that the organization is ran is so smooth. Like everything transitions the right way. I think
Right.
that they transitioned smoothly from Ozzie to Eric DeCosta. They transitioned smoothly from from Brian Billick to John Harbaugh. They transitioned smoothly, to multiple people.
Yeah.
So, quarterback Joe Flacco going to Lamar Jackson, smooth transition. So this is like a constant, they're able to transition people's, you know, tenures cleanly. And I think a lot of teams they can't do that the way that the Ravens have done. The way the Ravens do those things, I mean that matters more than anything. I think that comes down to show you that this organization is probably, most of the one of the best or most well-run organizations in the league as a whole.
Absolutely. Just looking at the season, you brought up something earlier. You said that if they're winning and they haven't really got everything in order, are we, Rock Boy said Raven fans are obnoxious. We talked about being spoiled. The last year's 14-2 season, almost when you think about last season, the one thing you think about is the Ravens really went out there and had their way with everybody, with the exception of the Browns, obviously, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. And I'm talking about the 49ers, even though they won, and the Steelers the first time they played them. But with the exception of those teams, right? They essentially went out there. Oh, and the Cardinals. They went out there and had their way with everybody. This season, it looked like it was going to be that way. Obviously, the Chiefs game is just as Terrell Suggs said when they lost to the Houston Texans the year they won the Super Bowl. Throw away the tape, right?
Hmm.
And, but does this game make you think after the way it ended that this is going to be a tougher season? Obviously, Pittsburgh coming up, Tennessee coming up. Those are two games that they really want to win. Cleveland may not have found their confidence. I was kind of happy that the Browns lost today. I didn't want them to have any breath of confidence for the rest of the season. If they would have been the first team to beat the Steelers, you wouldn't have been able to tell them anything. But I think they've been knocked back down to earth. I know Baker Mayfield was hurt, but do you see the Ravens having to work harder this year, or do you think that they'll get back on track and kind of have maybe even they won't drive through the rest of the season, but they'll have more blowout? Do you see more blowout victories, or do you see more close game victories?
I think it's gonna be closer games because I think the division's tougher this
Mhm.
season. I'll just be completely honest with you. I mean, I think, the Steelers are a way better team this year just because Ben Roethlisberger's back. We kind of figured that would happen. Like
Mhm.
if Ben came back, we figured, okay, the Steelers will be, a stronger team than they were when they had Mason Rudolph. I mean, that's just a given. Now the question is, do we think the Steelers will be 5-0? You know, and I think with the teams that they played against, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But Houston looked terrible when they played against. We have to remember Houston looked awful when they played against the Steelers too. I mean, it's like you have multiple teams that the Steelers have played against that you're like, have they really had a real test yet? And it's kind
Exactly.
of something like last year when the Ravens had played the Patriots at that point. I think people tend to forget that the Patriots were like in the same boat where they had this historic defense, quote unquote, but then they ended up, wetting the bed against the Ravens. I
Hmm.
mean, it just like, the Ravens can't, it was in Baltimore and they punched them right in the mouth. And I think that the same thing could happen with the Steelers game, and it makes perfect sense that the Ravens are going in this. We know John Harbaugh. How many times does he lose after a bye week? It's been maybe once his entire career,
Maybe. Right.
and he's gonna come out swinging, and he's gonna plan for a home run. I think they're gonna go for throwing deep a
Hmm.
lot more. I think their deep ball game hasn't been as good this season, but I also think that has a lot to do with the fact that as soon as the ball is snapped, somebody's blowing right through the right guard
Yeah.
every time. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be Tyree Phillips. It could be Patrick McCarry. It could be whoever Ben Powers, Ben Bredesen. It doesn't matter. It's always somebody blowing through the right guard, and that cannot happen. And so
Hmm.
next time, I think they're gonna have to do something about that. Whether that means, when they line up in a pistol formation, do you put Patrick Ricard on the right side a little bit more because you're gonna need that second line of defense, kind of the block, and or maybe they line up doing something weird. Last time we got to remember, you remember, I mean, a couple of years ago, Ravens had this play. I can't remember who lined up at tight end. I can't remember if it was Crockett Gilmore or somebody else along that nature, but they lined him up behind one of the guards and hit him, and he just ran through and then ran right up the middle, and everybody was like, "That's an illegal play. That's an illegal play." That play is still illegal. Maybe
Hmm.
they do something like that, but instead they block doing that.
Right.
And I think they could give somebody an extra blocker, doing those things. They have numbers. I think, with the pistol makes it easier to run downhill.
Hmm.
This year it hasn't been as easy to run downhill, probably because they've been trying to press so much.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the run's coming.
Hmm.
Um, and then the play action hasn't been working to the extent that you need it because nobody's getting open. You would expect Hollywood Brown to get open a little bit better. I think that he's been locked up a little bit. Not as he did fine at times today, but I think, it's like now everybody knows, okay, the ball's only going to Hollywood or
Yeah.
going to Mark Andrews. This time, though, Lamar came out. He started passing to other people, started
Hmm.
passing to the backs, started passing to, Nick Boyle got a touchdown today. So I think that's gonna be interesting going forward. I see some people are like Lamar has to play better. He has to play better. But if Lamar's finding different receivers and they can't catch the ball, they're dropping passes. Like J.K. Dobbins had, a play
That's what
where
happened
he should
against
have caught.
Tennessee.
Yep, should have caught that
Yeah.
ball. And Willie Snead had a play where it was slightly outside of the range of his grasp. I mean, it just, those things they can't happen. I mean, and it's not, well, you can't blame Lamar. And I
Exactly.
see a question from Mikey. He said, "Can someone tell me why they keep giving Gus Edwards touches?" I'll let you answer that one
Now I was
because
gonna
I
let you.
know.
You.
Oh, you
That's,
want me to answer?
yeah.
So before this game, if I'm not mistaken, Gus Edwards was averaging like, you know, he was averaging like 5 yards a carry. If somebody's
Hmm.
averaging 5 yards a carry, you got to give them touches. It's as simple as that. And if you look at his historic stats, like past 3 years he's been in the season, Gus Edwards has consistently averaged five something yards a carry.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean that's why you got to give him the ball because and plus he doesn't fall backwards. At one point during his rookie season, he had no, I think it was like up until the last game or so, he had no rushes where he was tackled in the backfield. The guy just continually tries to churn out yards, and that's something that the Ravens need to continue to do. And
Yeah. I don't
so,
think he's your number one back at all. I think I like him like for the exact reasons you just named. I think when it's said, my cousin on Facebook said, sorry Ingram, I would start Dobbins right now, and he says the Ravens need a pass rush before the deadline. For the trade deadline. I do like Dobbins. When I watched him last week, right there on the field, I said this guy's going to be a playmaker, and I think the game was already over. But just the way he was moving and cutting, I think he just gave me those Ray Rice vibes. And I think that Edwards, today was a bad game, but he'll bounce back without a doubt. And I remember when they drafted Dobbins, like why would they do that? They're good at the run game. But I think they realized too that you go for the best player in the draft, but you also looking at your run game. If that's you realizing that Ingram was going to be a year older. These guys got hit last year, no matter what. Yeah, they were successful, but it's kind of like DeMarco Murray when the Cowboys realized that they were going to drain him, and they gave him a record number of touches when he was going for the record. So I have no problem with this. I love the three-headed monster at the running back, and then you got the best running quarterback in the league, probably the history of the game. So, Mike Patton says, "Do I think Ingram is gone after the season?" No, I don't think he's gone. Um, he's like that heart and soul of the offense.
yeah, I think it will hurt them. I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if they explored it. Just
Okay,
because if they wanna try to pick up, if they think they don't necessarily need Ingram, I could see them exploring it. But I also think that would hurt them. Just like I think the Hayden Hurst trade kind of hurt the Ravens offense too, way
yeah,
more than people realize. I
absolutely.
think Hayden Hurst. I mean, we actually, if I'm not mistaken, when we were sitting here in April, or I guess before April when Hayden Hurst got traded. One of the things that I saw was that, you know, what are they going to try to do? Are they going to try to get another receiver?
Hmm.
And then they ended up picking J.K. Dobbins with the pick that they got for Hayden Hurst. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if Hayden Hurst came available again from the Falcons, do you think the Falcons would be willing to give up on Hayden Hurst and
Hmm.
maybe for a cheaper pick? Because I think that would work pretty well,
Yeah.
but and like I said, I like J.K. Dobbins. I think they needed J.K. Dobbins because you can't necessarily, just try to rely on Mark Ingram all the time.
Hmm.
But, they need another tight end. They
Yeah.
absolutely, I mean, that Lamar is the best thrower to tight ends in the league, in my opinion. Outside, I think, you got a couple other guys that can hit their tight ends, but
Hmm.
not as good as Lamar, And the Ravens' offense has always been predicated on great tight end play.
I was thinking about that when
That,
you brought up Cocky Gilmore. You think about Max
mhm,
Williams,
yep.
Ben Watson, obviously Todd Heap, Shannon
Yep.
Sharp.
hmm Exactly. I mean, it's gone on for years that the Ravens have had, good tight end Dennis Pitta, you know,
Hmm.
I mean, Ed Dixon was another guy. You know, the
Oh
Ravens
yeah.
drafted Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta the same season because they were trying to copy off what the Patriots did.
Hmm.
So I
That's what
think
my cousin Josh said. That I got it from the Patriots.
right, and then the Ravens did it again. And honestly, I mean, when they had Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst, and I'm like, man, this is way better than the Ed Dixon and Dennis Pitta
Hmm.
duo. Honestly, I mean, like Mark Andrews is a top five tight end in the league. That's not even. There's no argument on that one. I
Exactly.
don't think. I don't think it can be an argument. But
Well, you know
you
how
know,
sports
Hayden
fans
Hurst.
are.
Right. I mean, no. Somebody. Some. I hate the rain on Eagles fans parade, but
Hmm.
some Eagles fans were still telling me they were like, "Well, Zach Ertz has a better body of work." I was like, well, the body of work isn't showing up this season. I'm sorry to say, and I'm sorry to also jump on a player that's hurt right now because he's
Hmm. I know
not.
what you mean, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like Mark Andrews right now is a better tight end, and I also would include to say the fact that like Hayden Hurst, you know, when we were talking about last year, Hayden Hurst would just sneak up on people and just get open. And
Yeah.
I think this time last year, Lamar had way more yards because of Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst got open all the time and just snuck around, and way more so than some of the other guys. Like sometimes I see Willie Snead out there, and today he showed up in that bit. That play was huge today.
Hmm.
Um, but sometimes you would like to see him get open. Maybe that's not necessarily just on him. I'm starting to think maybe the design of the offense is kind of limited,
Yeah.
um, especially when it comes to downfield passing. I think downfield passing is a little iffy, but I think that's something that they could fix.
Yeah, and I think they will. It's going to be very fun to watch. I think we will experience some some gut wrenching moments, but I do think I actually believe. I mean, call me crazy, but you know me. When I get on a pick, I don't let it go, and that's what I did with the NBA, and I was correct when I picked the Lakers to win it
Mm,
all. So I mean, I picked the Ravens to win it all this year. I had them beating Seattle. I have, yeah, I saw the Monday night game, but that's a kryptonite. But you got to overcome your kryptonite. I think that's what's going to happen. I picked
mm,
them in 2012, and when they lost to the Broncos, the infamous Flacco win, I still stayed with the pick, and I still think they'll get together. I do think they've taken that. If you remember from 11 to 12, right? In
mm.
11, they were good enough to get the first round bye. In 12, they came out hot. Like I said, got pummeled by the Texans. Then they had them where they lost, like I think, two straight. And I remember Bolden said, "It's all good. We still going to the AFC North. We're fine." And they didn't have that same firepower. Obviously, the hey diddle diddle, Ray Rice up the middle play, all that.
Mm.
And then boom, they go ahead and win the Super Bowl. I think this team will do that. I think they will get high. Yeah, of course, Mike says that. He says he thinks the Ravens could possibly could study the Titans tape for explosive plays and play action for more
No,
ideas.
I agree with
I
that.
know,
You just got to
you
hit
know,
on that.
I had to give him because
Yeah, we gotta give Mike we gotta give him some credit on that.
yeah,
Gotta
but
give him his shout on the tight ends. I know they've been.
yeah,
Look, let's be completely honest. The Titans I think it's a couple blueprints that I think that the Ravens should use to beat in the Chiefs. I think the
mm-hmm,
Titans play action game is one of them on offense. And I think defensively the Raiders, what they did with Patrick Mahomes at times. Let's let's not let's not sit up here and say the Raiders offense didn't put pressure on them too.
right.
So I think the Ravens offense is gonna have to play way better than what they did in that Monday night game and way
Well, they
better than
started
what's
off
happened.
good. I don't know what happened. They started off running
Yeah,
the ball.
they
Looked
just
like okay, they're gonna run it down their throats, and they got away from it.
Yep. And I never understood why they did that, and they didn't give Gus Edwards the ball. That was the
Mm-hmm.
other thing.
Just like
Gus
they
Edwards
didn't
was run.
against the Titans.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Mike says he's not a Titans fan. My bad. Sorry. That's
Yeah, we
right.
know
You are a boy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's a
Cowboys fan. I forget.
49ers fan.
Oh, 49ers fan. That's right.
Yeah,
I feel even worse now.
but,
Calling this
but he
man a
brought him up.
Cowboys fan. He's gonna throw
Obviously
me under the bus now. I know he is.
he covers the Titans, so make sure y'all check
He
out the
covers.
Sports Awakening.
Yeah, man. But
How
yeah,
about Derrick Henry today?
oh yeah, Derrick Henry was awesome. I got him on one of my fantasy teams,
Oh,
so
good
I
for
was I
you.
was hyped.
He
Got 40
definitely will.
points from him.
He went viral, running the ball. I mean, that's just not fair. Dude is like your height,
Yeah, that's what I'm
almost.
saying. He's like, it's like it's crazy because he's like everybody remembers Brandon Jacobs, but he's like Brandon Jacobs if Brandon Jacobs was fast. Like that's
Exactly.
scary to think about.
Hmm.
Brandon Jacobs used to beat people up, but you could catch up to him eventually. You throw like four people on him and try to jump on him, and then maybe you could take him down before he'll get 10 yards. But
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, he just he runs over the first guy and then he breaks through and then you can't catch him. I mean, the dude's
Exactly.
just so fast, man. And strong. He's just powerful. I've never seen a running back like him ever in my life. Six
Yeah.
foot three, 6'4", 240 pounds. You're not stopping him. He's a tight end playing running back.
You just watch out because he's just gonna run you right over. I mean, Earl Thomas
Hmm.
certainly knows that. Speaking of Earl Thomas, I felt bad for like I said, I mentioned earlier, feeling bad for Chuck Clark. Had his interception and overturned. We saw that it was a penalty. Same thing happened last week, a penalty for Chuck Clark, and then we saw Deshaun Elliott getting the interception only for it to be an incomplete pass. Uh, which that's why I said like watching those plays happen made me realize like Carson Wentz was throwing a lot of jump balls out there. He was running for his life. Like the Eagles fans, they for them to get on him. I know some people saying, I saw a lot of mixed emotions, but like y'all gotta look. This guy was out there essentially running for his life, But looking at the Ravens secondary, I still think they're incredible. Before we wrap out, what's the next game you see as trouble for the Ravens?
The Titans game.
Okay.
To be completely honest, I mean, I think that Titans team. I think the Ravens will come ready to play against the Steelers, but it's like I think that Titans team they have the kryptonite, the other kryptonite that the Ravens, you know, can't. It's like what can Superman not see through? He can't see through lead, and the Ravens defense can't see through Derrick Henry.
Mhm.
They don't know what's coming. Derrick Henry could catch a pass out of the backfield and just run them over. He
Does
could run the
Corliss
ball
Campbell
through.
help?
Yes, I think so. I think he
Okay.
does. I think he puts pressure on Ryan Tannehill because I don't think that's the thing. Last year when the Ravens played against the Titans in the playoffs, Ryan Tannehill didn't beat the Ravens,
Mm-mm.
and it's a reason for that. Now they relied on Derrick Henry, and I think the play action this year. Oh my goodness, man, that's the thing that kind of concerns me because
Mm-hmm.
I think the Eagles kind of showed that today that they were like, all right, well, let's just run play action. Maybe that'll catch them off guard. And sure enough, they were torching the Ravens, especially on the outside passes too.
Yeah.
And I think that they need to kind of fix that. They need to get that right. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping and praying that the Ravens can fix that if they want to go further. That's just my opinion. I think they need that.
Yeah, I think they will. Kyle, appreciate you coming on, man. Taking time out of your busy day. Let the people know where they can find you and let them know about the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me at Kyle J Andrews _ on Twitter, also on Instagram, and then I have a podcast along with Gabrielle DePaula of 105.7 The Fan, Vasilios Nicolau with WBAL TV, sports producer for them, and also Anthony Barkley. And it's called Mobtown Blitz. You can follow Mobtown Blitz at Mobtown Pod. Of course, we got a Facebook. Follow my Facebook account at Kyle J Andrews. Do all those other things too, and listen to our show. We'll definitely be on this week. We got a lot to talk about, especially heading into the bye. We might have a special guest um, that is a former Raven, so we'll check in with you guys and let you know how that works out.
All right, folks, make sure y'all check out Kyle. Definitely excited to have him here on this Ravens post show. Like I said, I was actually just listening to the podcast last night.
They had a very interesting conversation about Dak Prescott. Not going to reveal it, but let's just say everybody's not sold on Dak being an elite quarterback. So you guys check out the Mobtown, it was Mobtown Blitz podcast as as I did. So till the next time, folks. Brian H. Waters signing off. Keep up to date by making sure you subscribe to this channel on Hap News, and make sure if you don't have the Haps News app, download it, check it out. Sports show coming soon. So thank you, everyone.